All right, I'm here with Mark Baird. Mark, can you tell us about today?
Yeah, sure can. Thanks for having me, Mike. First, we got to the courthouse. I guess it was between 1 and 1:30. We had a really great turnout. There were a couple of hundred people there with flags and signs. And it was interesting because when we first started this, people would yell out their windows, "Yeah, you can't do it. It'll never happen." And now everybody that drives by, including the police, are honking and waving and cheering us on. So, I think that the idea of proper representation and changing the corrupt nature of California's government, I think its time has come. And I think its acceptance by most of the people is pretty broad-based. So I'm really pleased about that. The reception we got was fantastic by all the people we came in contact with. So we were outside the courthouse, and people were spread out in several corners. I spoke for a while, and then we went over and met with the attorneys prior to the case beginning. So we had a good long conference with some of the plaintiffs over the how they were going to proceed in the case, and then went in the courtroom. The courtroom was obviously full. There wasn't one empty seat. We were spilled out into the hallway, which is what I had hoped. And then away we go with the judge. So the judge was, I don't know, I guess my mother told me if you can't say something nice, don't say anything. The judge was an interesting character. Her logic was somewhat tortured, in my opinion. She was obviously, in my opinion, my humble opinion, she was obviously prejudiced in favor of the state's argument. The state's argument remains weak and lazy. Essentially what they're saying is that, yes, we don't have enough representation in California, but since everyone in California is equally disadvantaged, there's nothing the court can do about it. And they're also saying that because it's a political question, there's no justicability. In other words, to put it in the words of the trial judge, I'm just a lowly trial judge. I can't imagine how I could wrap my arms around this case. But when we look at the foundation of the Article III courts by the people of the United States in the form of their Constitution, the trial court judge, the circuit judge, is the point where you begin. And then the circuit judge rules on your case, and if you're not happy or pleased with the ruling of the circuit judge, then you go to the appeals court. And if you're not happy with what the appeals court did, then you go to the United States Supreme Court. So to have a circuit court judge throw up her hands and say, well, I'm just a lowly trial judge, I can't imagine how I'd wrap my arms around this case, and then if she rules to dismiss our motion, we're sitting there wondering, well, because the judge felt incompetent, the people don't get their day in court. But that was the type of logic. For example, we're alleging that specific groups of people were and continue to be discriminated against in the California legislature. The history is easy to prove. It's glaring, in fact. The theme of the 1879 Constitution was the Chinese must go. They called it the cleansing even. I mean, it's irrefutable. And what we're saying to the judge is discrimination of any kind is never a general harm. It's an individual harm. Therefore, we have standing to bring this case. And as far as the justicability of it goes, we're not asking you to do the arithmetic. We're asking you to declare the government of the state of California unconstitutional, and then we'll deal with that in settlement later. We'll deal with the justicability and the numbers and the mathematics and the specific remedy after you rule. We're not asking you to do the arithmetic. And so it was funny. She asked questions like, for example, well, you mentioned this group and rural people and people who don't have access to political power because they live in sparsely populated areas. Well, let me ask you a question. Who's not included in the discrimination? What group in California isn't included in it? And the lawyer God bless his heart, he was kind of looking at her, and he said, well, Your Honor, those are the people that aren't plaintiffs. She said, but who are they? Who are the people that are not discriminated against? And he said, well, the people, the groups, and the specific individuals who are being discriminated against are listed in our complaint as the plaintiff, and I guess the people who aren't discriminated against are everybody else. But she kept asking him. In other words, let's say you were a judge and I said, well, Your Honor, I'm going to take I-5 and I'm going to go home on I-5. And the judge says, well, before I approve that, I want you to name every other highway in the United States to make sure I approve of the one you've chosen. And you're kind of looking at her going, well, Your Honor, the rest of the highways don't much matter because I-5 is the highway I want to take, and I don't even know the numbers of the rest of the highways. Why on earth would you ask me a question like that? Well, I just want to see if your choice is appropriate when there are so many other highways in the United States that you could take. You know, and it was just like that, and it kept going round and round and round. And then the state's attorney said, well, you know, Your Honor, I suppose if we had 20 million people in California and we gave the plaintiff 20 million representatives, then they'd be happy. And the judge, well, I suppose they would, wouldn't they? You know, and so I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, you know why we would? Because then you wouldn't be able to hurt us anymore because we'd all have a part in this. But so she continually missed the point. She missed it on purpose, we believe. But you don't know. I mean, God is funny. He can do anything. He could touch her heart and see the wisdom in this case, and she could rule for us. You know, we just don't know. So she said that she would take all of the information into consideration. And mind you, the state's legal argument hasn't changed a bit. They cite no law. They don't have any circumstance for which they want us denied justice. Their arguments are weak. They're lazy, and they don't hold water. They don't hold water in the Supreme Court. And in fact, our attorney brought up this point, that the state's argument against this case is the same argument that lost the Baker versus Carr case in the United States Supreme Court. And if the Baker defense or the Baker plaintiffs had standing, then we have standing, because essentially we're kind of a microcosm of the plaintiffs in the Baker case, and they just absolutely ignored that. They ignored the 14th Amendment in the fact that people have the right to maintain the value of their vote. They ignored the case of Citizens United versus House of Representatives, that you have an individual right to maintain the value of your vote. We pointed out that very few people in California vote anymore because they don't think their vote counts. And they, well, you know, yeah, okay, so, but tell me who does think their vote counts. I mean, the questions that the judge was asking were stupid. So, you know, we don't know what the ruling is going to be. Genuinely, we don't. And upon reflection, she may well look at those arguments and say, you know, I can't deny that these people have a point and they deserve their day in court. And that's all we're asking for. But whether she rules for us or against us, there were circumstances that presented themselves during the oral argument that give us a very solid basis to go forward. Whether she rules for us or against us, we already have a plan to proceed.
Well, thank you so much, Mark.
That's about it in a nutshell, Mike, unless you have any specific questions.
I'd like to know more about the environment and the atmosphere that was going on down at the courthouse today. How did the state of Jefferson feel today?
Well, the state of Jefferson felt great, and it's funny, we were getting great support from the people driving by. There were even Sacramento police officers that drove by and honked and waved as they went by. The Department of Homeland Security showed up, and they talked to one of the county leaders who relayed this to me, and the Homeland Security said, you know, guys, just don't play in the fountain and we'll be okay today. And he laughed and left his card. Hey, if you have any problems, give me a call, and walked away. That was it. I mean, so, you know, we went and we exercised some very important constitutional guarantees. We exercised our First Amendment, and we exercised the right to peacefully assemble and petition the government for redress of grievance. And that's important because in the state of California, we have lost our liberty. It's gone. We don't have it anymore. And what we're trying to do is literally fight a battle between the state and ourselves, the people who form the state, to find a pathway to regain our liberty because we've lost it. You have no Second Amendment. You have very few rights in California. In fact, the state is even going to tell you how much water you can use in your own home, and they're going to tax you if you don't obey. They're going to tax you for not saving the environment to the degree Jerry Brown thinks you should. Jerry says you should be brainwashed to accept climate change. Jerry says your lives are too easy, and unless you have more hardship, we'll never save the climate. And if you think Jerry's bad, wait until Gavin Newsom takes over his position. So this fight we're in is important because it is nothing less than a battle between good and evil.
It is.
And the time has come for 51.
Well, it's a battle that we have to win. There's no other option. It's a battle we have to win.
I agree. And in order to win, we need people to show up. We need people to stand up. We need people to go where we need to assemble. We need people to voice their frustration and voice their insistence that we demand liberty, and we demand liberty through adequate representation in districts that are small enough that it's cheap and it's easy to get rid of a bum when you accidentally elect one.
Well, thank you so much, Mark, for talking to me tonight. I appreciate it. I know you're on your way back home.
Oh, you're welcome, Mike. Thanks for the opportunity to speak, and I will talk to you soon.
All right. I hope you have a great night.
You too. Thanks.